Hey, how's it going? So this is another very important, imperative video that you should take the time to listen to and share it with a friend. All right. Now, first of all, yes, I'd like to start with a very nice scripture here in Deuteronomy 15 chapter and second verse. All right. And it basically says where every 7 years, all right, that if a debtor, all right, is in debt with a creditor, that he should be released every 7 years. All right. This also dealt with back in the day, like slavery or indentured servitude. Okay. And when he is released, all right, that he should have a few things in his name, and it was called the Lord's release. All right. You can find that in Deuteronomy chapter 15, verses 2. Now, I do believe in debt forgiveness and consolidation and so forth, but I do believe that you should be able to pay a very significant amount, all right, toward your forgiveness, your forgiveness, because what you put into it is what you get out of it, all right, and it should be a very satisfactory amount. So we're going to talk about here Young Buck. It was a very eye-raising story, and made me very interested in it based on some mistakes that I made in my past. And I did a video about a guy in Miami that was locked up for PPP loans. And I know at one time I was young, all right. I did in my 20s abuse some credit cards and bought some things I wasn't supposed to buy with it, and it turned around to bite me in the backside at the time. That was in the 90s and so forth, okay? I also filed bankruptcy, chapter 13, all right? We'll talk about that here in a second or whatever, okay? And, you know, I learned a lot. I remember I owed money to the IRS, okay? But I learned a lot from my mistakes, and I learned that just to pay it off. And I think when you get married, and if you talk about you want to have a relationship and kids and all that stuff, these things are things that you're going to have to keep in mind, though, young folks, and older too, okay? And you get to a certain age, some of this stuff you ain't got no damn business doing, period. And we'll get into that, all right? But you have to need to think about these things when you want to settle down and have a family, or you want to retire, or you want to get to where you don't want to have to work as hard, okay? You don't want these things to turn around and bite you in the backside, all right? Because you sweep it under the rug, these things will haunt you, because they'll still be there in the end. So again, I want to talk about Young Buck, this rapper here, and he had to take a plea, okay, because he hid some royalties while he was trying to file for Chapter 7 bankruptcy. All right, but before we get into that, all right, I want to talk about a few things, okay? This comes from debt.org. 1 in 50, and this article was in 2005 from these stats, between 2005 to 2011, okay? That 1 in 55 people, all right, filed bankruptcy in 2005, all right? And that went down in the middle 2010s. But there was 2 million cases in 2005 of bankruptcy, okay? It was an all-time high back then.
You've got mail.
But 10 years from that, it went down to 600,000, but I'm pretty sure that's back up, all right, with all the stuff that went on with the quarantine and all that, but that information was not available about, okay? So businesses make up for 3% at that time of bankruptcies, but it was 13% like in the 80s, okay? All right, the states that are largest and have the largest amount of bankruptcy. California has 95,000, Georgia and Illinois has 74,000, particularly like Georgia, okay? Causes of bankruptcy, okay, is job loss, reduction in pay, and medical bills, okay? And built up medical bills. Here's some other ways that you can consider other than Chapter 7 bankruptcy, okay? The CCC program is credit management, all right? You can do that at the United Way, okay? Where they'll consolidate your bills and they'll give you a certain percentage off. But inevitably, you're going to have to pay that. Debt management, consolidation loans, all right? You can consider that. Most people that's been affected by this, all right, are people that make under 30,000, between 38 to 55. Okay, is the largest group right now. All right, it makes 23%. It was people under 25 in the 90s, but that dropped. All right, significantly to like 5%. Okay, other causes is divorce, credit card bills. All right, for buying whatever, school loans, job loss, reduced income. 17% are single and 15% are divorced. Okay, so large percent of that are single people. All right, for chapter 7 bankruptcy. All right, so those are some fun facts that you can find on your own, okay, on debt.org, and there's some other stuff, the bankruptcy.facts and some other stuff. So let's talk about Young Buck, okay? Renowned rapper from the G Unit group from Nashville, Tennessee. All right. He owed $24,000 in royalties. I told you before that he had to plead the deal for perjury, okay? Against filing for Chapter 7 bankruptcy while he had royalties. And royalties will complicate your court case, okay, based off that, all right? And you have to report that so they could be able to use your royalties or whatever assets to help pay off as much of that debt as possible, okay? But these are other things that killed him before that, all right? So he owed $46,000 in child support, all right? And that was way before them. He was locked up in 2009 for this shit, okay? Had owing all that money for his son and daughter, okay? When he came out with the G Unit, and he made this record, I think it was Buck the World in 2004, he got $1 million advance just for making that record, okay? So he was already a millionaire, and he was making millions according to a testimony from 50 Cent. And he wasn't paying his taxes, probably because they blowing it on bullshit or whatever, all right? And probably alleged, for the trannies that he's dating, all right? And whatever lifestyle, lavish lifestyle, all right? And 50 Cent actually helped him on his taxes for the first few years. And he did warn them at a certain point in time because 50 Cent was going in a different direction. He was starting to make movies and getting into entrepreneurship to find their own managers and so forth, because that was the direction that he got into. And now he's doing TV shows and that type of stuff. All right. I don't agree with it, but that's how he's making his money, because you ain't going to make so much money rapping. All right. Somebody else is going to take that spot, that number one spot. So when he reported to the courts, this is Young Bucks, he was making $45,000, $4,500 a month, okay, and $1,500 a month on his expensive that he was reporting. Probably the money, from shows or royalties or whatever, kickbacks. And he had the courts had an appointed debitor to investigate his royalties from ASCAP, and that's when he found out that he had $25,000 in royalty, which is really not a lot for a star, okay? So he had to take a plea deal for perjury that could lead for 1 year in Tennessee for simple perjury, and 10 years for aggravated perjury, all right? He's not able to make music, okay, since their reunion in 2014, because 50 Cent had seized his catalog or whatever, okay? Well, the debitors cannot take the catalog, but 50 Cent has seized and desist Young Buck from putting out that music, because he is still signed technically to G Unit after they made that reunion, okay, which they made in 2014. Some other things, since this quarantine, all entertainers have had problems. It's basically blown the cover off how much money these guys are making or whatever. I remember Gabrielle Union had came publicly and said that most entertainers and actresses and so forth only make 1 to 2 checks or whatever. That's the same with athletes. 80% of athletes become broke, okay? But the younger ones has became a lot more smarter, learning from guys my age during that particular era from their mistakes of doing dumb stuff, okay? And Young Buck I don't think that he was very money savvy at all, okay? So they have to use that money to liquidate all debts